Niki Lauda's retirement has overshadowed all else at the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend. Niki's decision ends the career of one of motor racing's greatest champions. Only Stewart, Clark and Fangio have won more Grand Prix than the Austrian. He was world champion first in 1975 for Ferrari. Then the following year was terribly burned in a crash at the Nürburgring. But his iron determination brought him back from the brink of death, only to lose his title to James Hunt by just 1 point. He regained the world title in 1977, but then moved to Brabham. And though his final season has been disappointing to say the least, with retirement following retirement in the unreliable BT48, his career ended with a win. Here at Imola 2 weeks ago, he fights for the lead with Gilles Villeneuve's Ferrari in a non-championship race. Villeneuve hits Lauda and the wing comes off the front of his Ferrari, but Lauda goes on to win. But in practice at Montreal, Lauda realised his heart was no longer in racing and with characteristic decisiveness announced his retirement on the spot. Later we'll hear from James Hunt, another world champion to retire this year, and Niki's great friend and rival. So no Niki Lauda in the lineup for the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal today. The second year the race has been held on the Notre Dame Island in the middle of the St. Lawrence Seaway. It's a specially constructed street circuit with a lap of some 2.74 miles long, and the race is over 72 laps of that race, 197 miles. In the front row of the grid, Alan Jones, winner of 3 of the last 4 Grand Prix. Alongside him, Gilles Villeneuve in the Ferrari, who won here last year. Then Clay Regazzoni in the Saudia Williams and Nelson Piquet in the brand new Ford-engined Brabham BT49. Row 3, Jacques Lafitte in the Ligier, third in the World Championship with Didier Pironi in the Candy Tyrrell. Row 4, the 2 turbocharged 1.5 litre Renaults, Jean-Pierre Jabouille, French Grand Prix winner, and René Arnoux, who has been pole position man twice in recent Grand Prix. Then the 2 world champions, this year's world champion Jody Scheckter in the Ferrari and last year's world champion Mario Andretti in the Lotus 79. Now the end of the warm-up lap. Leading out from the slow hairpin at the end of the lap, the white Saudia Williams of Alan Jones. Alongside him, the scarlet Ferrari of Gilles Villeneuve, the young French-Canadian who won in Canada last year. And on the left, the scarlet car is the new Brabham BT49 of Nelson Piquet in a new white helmet. To the right behind Jones is the white Saudia Williams of Clay Regazzoni, and in the background the scarlet Ferrari of world champion Jody Scheckter. 72 laps, watch for the red, that will be the starter's orders. Then, about 10 seconds or less later, the green for 72 laps of this grueling circuit. They go, and look at Jody Scheckter onto the grass. Jody Scheckter in the Ferrari onto the grass, not making up any places at all, and it's Villeneuve leading from Alan Jones as they go into the first corner. Gilles Villeneuve in the 500 horsepower flat 12 Ferrari is in the lead, the 312 T4 ahead of Alan Jones, the Australian. Clay Regazzoni in third position, and it's Nelson Piquet in the Brabham in fourth place. Pironi is fifth, Jacques Lafitte is in sixth position, and then Carlos Reutemann behind him in the Lotus 79. Alan Jones chasing Gilles Villeneuve. Clay Regazzoni is third, Nelson Piquet, and that's a terrific performance from Piquet, with Pironi behind him. Then Jacques Lafitte, who is challenging for third position in the World Championship. He holds that third position. He could finish second if he does well in this race. There is Piquet, there is Pironi, there is Lafitte, and Gilles Villeneuve leads. Last year, Gilles Villeneuve, who drove so brilliantly in the Italian Grand Prix and led it for so long, only to finish second to Andretti, came to Montreal and in front of his home crowd, who nearly went mad with excitement, won the first Canadian Grand Prix to be held on this new circuit. And on the first lap, it's Villeneuve leading Jones, leading Regazzoni. And that's the first lap completed, 71 laps to go. And they accelerate away, up from third to fourth, to fifth. Jones, Regazzoni, Piquet, it's still Pironi fifth, Lafitte sixth. And there's a slight gap now between the second and third men. There is Villeneuve going through the S's on the very fast reverse side of the course. The lap record is held by Alan Jones, 1 minute 38.1, 102.6. James Hunt, what's your view at this early stage of the race?
Well, I think, Murray, that the answer is that this race is really going to be very much dictated by the great difficulty in overtaking on this circuit. It's not impossible, but it is very difficult. It's a beautiful circuit. It's very recently constructed to the highest safety standards, very well laid out. But one of the main features of keeping circuits safe is to keep the speeds down, and this makes overtaking really very difficult indeed, because you never really get a chance to get wound up and have a proper crack at the guy in front. So this is going to be a big problem for all the drivers. I mean, for instance, I noticed that Jody there at the start made to get away well. They had a Renault in front of him, and they're notoriously difficult with their turbocharged engines to get off the line. And in fact, he got on the grass, got more wheel spin, and as a result of all that, unfortunately lost a couple more places. He in fact came off worst in the deal.
So, coming to the end of lap 2 in this 72-lap race, Villeneuve and Jones challenging. Just takes a look at the inside of Villeneuve's car as they go round the hairpin. Up now to the end of the second lap, and it's Villeneuve, Jones in second position. Regazzoni is still in third place. Nelson Piquet is in fourth position. And it's the Ferrari power that's leading. Villeneuve, of course, knows this circuit very well indeed. It is, in effect, his home circuit, although he's had no more practice on it than anyone else, because last year was... And there is Piquet. Nelson Piquet in the Brabham is ahead of Regazzoni into third position. Regazzoni fourth then, and Jacques Lafitte is in fifth position. So, young Nelson Piquet, 26 years old, the man who is now leading the Brabham team with Niki Lauda out of it, and incidentally Riccardo Zunino has taken Lauda's place, and that is Jean-Pierre Jabouille's Renault in the early stages of the race, and it looks as though he is out of the event, because you can see that they've got the whole of the fairing lifted above the Renault, and that's Lafitte. Jacques Lafitte in fifth position, out of the race, he's out of the car, and that means that the Frenchman has tragically for him lost his chance of second place in the World Championship, and that is Jan Lammers. A race of incident already, because at the end of the lap, Jan Lammers, the young Dutchman, and that is number 17 and he spins the car right the way round. He restarted, he was push started, and he's bound to be penalised if not disqualified for that. Jan Lammers then back into the race, and Gilles Villeneuve is still leading. What would be there? Villeneuve ahead of Jones, Piquet third, then Regazzoni, Scheckter and Reutemann. So Ferrari, Saudia, Williams, and then the Brabham, and there is the Ferrari. And what would be your tactics, James? Sorry, just quickly, Reutemann behind in sixth position. James.
Yeah, interesting feature at the moment, Murray, is how well the brand new Brabham's going. You know, I think...
And that's Hans Stuck, who went off the circuit last year, much earlier in the race than this, and it looks as though he has hit René Arnoux' Renault, because you can see from the way that Arnoux' car is being dragged back, and that is Jody Scheckter. They're coming out of the race very quickly indeed. That's Jody Scheckter, but he's having tyres changed. It looks as though he's keeping going. What's your comment, James?
Well, that's very interesting, because Jody was driving a great race. He'd moved up to fifth place, and he's gone into the pits for tyres. Now, the situation is whether he was on the same compound as Villeneuve. Because if he's on the same compound as Villeneuve, one can assume that probably they were running a bit risky with a soft compound, which may mean Villeneuve is going to get into trouble very soon. On the other hand, because Jody had a low grid position, they may have risked a soft compound with Jody and gone conservative with Villeneuve.
And that's Riccardo Patrese, the young Italian ex-kart world champion, out of the race in his arrows because he is off the course, obviously with a dead engine, and there's a lot of competitors out of the event, and Mario Andretti in the second of the two Lotuses there is closing up on Carlos Reutemann and takes him. And that's Mario Andretti then, the 1978 world champion, up into fifth position ahead of his teammate, number 2, Carlos Reutemann there, who is very obviously in trouble.
Well, we haven't seen much of Reutemann, but it must have been a very good drive, because he was way back on the grid, Murray. He must have had trouble in practice, and he'd come right through the field, and in fact he got past Andretti and established their normal positions, because it's quite a while since he's been behind Andretti in practice, but he did very well. And
it looks as though, having done very well, his race too is run. This Montreal circuit, as Carlos Reutemann, the Argentine, who is rumoured to be leaving Lotus, and look at that. That is on lap 27, which is about 1/3 distance. Nelson Piquet is closing up on Gilles Villeneuve and Jones.
Well, that could well mean that Villeneuve could be in a bit of tyre trouble, because Jones is without doubt being slowed a bit by Villeneuve. He's right very close behind him, and it's quite obvious if you can stay that close in the turbines of another car that the moment you're past, you're quicker. So it may well be that Villeneuve is holding him up a little bit, which is allowing Piquet to close up. But we'll have to see just how the tyres go. I'm sure it's very much a matter of tyres at the moment.
A good look there, and that's Derek Daly, the third of the Candy Tyrrells, because Pironi is in this race and so is Charrier, and Derek Daly, the Irish driver who finished 8th in the Italian Grand Prix for Ken Tyrrell, is obviously out of this event. 8th in the Austrian Grand Prix, is obviously out of this race, but is a good chance for a drive in the top Formula One car next year. Derek Daly out then, and they really are coming out of this race like flies, as Gilles Villeneuve and Alan Jones still leading, and it looks as though Alan Jones could well be driving a tactical race.
Well, yes, I think his tactics are simply get past at all costs if you can. I mean, there's nothing very complicated about that, Murray. The trouble is it's extremely difficult here. They're just passing a back marker there. But Alan Jones, to be that close behind Villeneuve, he's having to work very, very hard, because it's very difficult to your car loses grip in the turbulence of another car so close behind. And he's obviously, and it requires great concentration and hard work to stick that close. But to get past on a track like this, you have to be there in order to pick up any mistake that Villeneuve makes, because mistakes are just about the only chance to get past, that all tangled up with a back marker.
And is there going to be a mistake here? Because the back marker is Jan Lammers, who we saw rejoin the race. Is he going to balk Gilles Villeneuve as they come very wide to complete another lap? Gilles Villeneuve, then Alan Jones, Nelson Piquet in third position, and past with Regazzoni in fourth position. Jan Lammers goes Gilles Villeneuve, as we look at Mario Andretti in fifth position in the Lotus 79, the man who won so many races last year, 6 of them to be world champion and now to be displaced by Jody Scheckter. And that's Joanne Villeneuve, Gilles' wife, who is operating the timing equipment, keeping the lap charts going, and trying to keep implacable while she watches her husband, last year's winner, leading there, Alan Jones in the Saudia Williams. Jones harrying Villeneuve, and they're both closing up on Jody Scheckter, the reigning world champion, who is about to suffer the ignominy of being lapped by Gilles Villeneuve and Alan Jones. I wonder whether Jody Scheckter will let Villeneuve through but not Jones.
No, Jody will let them both through, I'm sure, Murray. He's an experienced driver. The top guys are very good like this. There he goes. He's letting them both of them straight through, no aggravation. And that shows the difference. You know, a lot of drivers are the slower people, and the people who aren't used to winning and leading and having their leads messed around don't let them through. But somebody like Jody, with all his experience, knows what it's like to be mucked around when you're trying to lead a race.
And down, looking down at the hairpin, you see the first 6 places after 48 laps in this 72 lap race. Villeneuve, Jones, Piquet, Regazzoni, 5th position Andretti, 6th position Didier Pironi. And that is Gilles Villeneuve, the 27-year-old Quebecois who actually lives in Monte Carlo, who made his Formula One debut in the British Grand Prix in 1977, and Jones getting ever closer to him, harrying him every inch of the way.
Yes, Jones. All he can do at the moment is pressure Villeneuve, or try and just catch him napping a bit, get a mistake out of him, or alternatively he's got to be very close when they get in amongst the back markers, because there's always a chance a back marker will mess things about and you can nip through.
Almost 2/3 distance then. 72 laps is this race, 197 miles of twists and turns and braking, acceleration, deceleration, and all the time with the French-Canadian leading his home event. Villeneuve is seeing Jones in his mirrors all the time as they come down to the hairpin to take another lap, and Jones is through. Jones closes right up on Villeneuve. He's got the inside line, they touch, and Villeneuve drifts out wide, and Alan Jones is in the lead at 2/3 distance with Jody Scheckter, the lapped world champion, going through in the background. Now it's going to be very interesting indeed to see whether Alan Jones was indeed being held up by Villeneuve, whether he was driving purely tactically, and whether now that he has got past he will be able to pull away from the French Canadian.
Yeah, here we have it again, Murray, and Alan Jones clearly got inside Villeneuve, and I have to say that this is just the reason that Villeneuve didn't win the World Championship this year. He threw it away because he hit Alan Jones then, he didn't give him the room, he was already beaten, and that was a very bad mistake because he risked taking them both out of the race by doing that, which was quite unnecessary. And that's inexperience, and he's made several, 3 or 4 of these manoeuvres this year, and he's lost some races by a little bit of hot-headedness when he shouldn't be doing that, because 6 points are better than none, and quite apart from the aggravation of taking Alan Jones off, who was a totally innocent party in the manoeuvre.
Well, the rot has well and truly set in. Lafitte is out, Stuck is out, Arnoux is out, Jean-Pierre Jabouille is out, with Jones leading, Villeneuve second, Piquet in the Brabham in 3rd position. De Angelis is out, so is Patrese and Derek Daly. But Jones and Villeneuve leading as they come through to complete another lap shortly. Villeneuve, Fittipaldi has been lapped, Alan Jones leads.
Now here we have it again on the slow motion. You will see that Jones gets fully alongside Villeneuve on the inside of the corner, which means that he has full rights to do his thing. He stays close to the inside, and Villeneuve just drives into him, which, as I say, is a totally negative thing to do, because there was no way he could sustain his position driving around the outside there, because Jones can just slide out as he exits the corner, and the only purpose that served was potentially to take them both off, which of course defeats the object for both of them.
Let us hope then. That's Piquet. Nelson Piquet, who had already been passed by Clay Regazzoni and was in 3rd position, a superb 3rd position in this brand new car, into the pits in 4th position, and it looks as though he is out of the race in the new Brabham BT49. Yes, he's out of the car and his race is completed. But Alan Jones now has Gilles Villeneuve very close to him indeed. Villeneuve hanging on. Tactics, do you think, James?
Well, Alan Jones pulled away quite sharply to start off with, and he's just suddenly, Villeneuve's closed up on him again. The crowd are on their feet. He's closed an awful lot in this lap. I don't know whether Jones is in trouble. It's impossible to tell. I suspect maybe he missed a gear or something like that, because it's... We'll wait and see if he's in trouble.
Hear the crowd shouting in the background, and no wonder, because they're seeing their French-Canadian hero closing up on Alan Jones, and Alan Jones has also got the added worry of knowing that Jody Scheckter is behind Villeneuve. Although Scheckter has been lapped, there is psychological pressure on Jones all the way. And we're in the closing stages of the race. Gilles Villeneuve has closed up. There are only a few laps to go, and Villeneuve could still take it, and that's John Watson into the pits. And this is something you hardly ever see in Grand Prix racing these days, refueling. And this circuit is very critical. John Watson is in 7th position. He's kept his 7th position, and he has refueled.
Well, fuel is a problem here, Murray. There was a lot of argument before the race about the length of it, because it was scheduled as 72 laps. And we've got problems because a lot of the cars are very marginal on simply being able to get enough fuel in them. It's not a miscalculation, they just haven't got room. And on lap 70, we've got 2 to go. Jones has apparently stabilised the situation with Villeneuve. He's fending him off at just a comfortable distance. And but of course, you see, we could have a problem with fuel with Jones. I don't think that was the reason he slowed down, because he'd be in more trouble now if that was the case.
2 laps left, and we have a message directly from Frank Williams that says the Saudia Williams team is preparing to refuel Alan Jones's car. This is incredible news, and Alan Jones has got to make in the cockpit the agonising decision. James, what would you do?
Oh no, he has to keep going now. He's got a lap and a half to go, Murray, and quite frankly, he'd be better off limping round. And I mean, because it coughs first, and they usually cough for at least a lap before they run out altogether. So he could limp round. He won't go into the pits this time. If he runs out of fuel, it's just going to be very bad luck for him.
Well, Alan will be metaphorically coughing inside his helmet, I should think. Lap 71 out of 72, and we have the news that Nelson Piquet went out of the race with a split gearbox on the Brabham BT49, and now Mario Andretti is out of the race, which makes Jody Scheckter 4th, Pironi 5th, and Watson in 6th position, with Regazzoni in 3rd position. Villeneuve 2nd, and there is the leader, Alan Jones. Right in the closing stages of the race now, and it looks as though Alan Jones, if he wins this race, and he's well on his way to doing it now, will have won 4 of the last 5 Grand Prix. It means that Gilles Villeneuve will go up to 2nd position in the World Championship. It means that Alan Jones, who is rounding the hairpin now and about to start his last lap, will move up to 3rd position in the World Championship. But the American Grand Prix has still to come, and they are into the last lap. Lap 72 out of 72 now. James, you're knowledgeable about Alan Jones.
Well, I think, as I stand here and look at this, Murray, I mean, I'm just very disappointed for Alan that they didn't get off to a better start to the season. Or not so much that, when they got their new car, they didn't get their reliability sorted out quickly enough. Because, I mean, you know, one only hesitates to think what might have been. The other thing, of course, is that if Alan wins this race now, with this ridiculous scoring system they've got, he's won 4 Grand Prix in this half, so it's hardly worth his while to go to Watkins Glen, which makes a mockery of the World Championship.
But he will, because he's a fighter. Jones, who won in Germany, won in Austria, won in Holland, and could well have won in Italy had he not had ignition trouble, because he was by far the fastest at Monza once he'd got the car sorted, is going, it seems, to win here in Canada. Because look, there is considerably less than half a lap to go. You can see that Villeneuve, try as he may, he's not closing the gap. The Canadian crowd, who was so vociferous when Villeneuve took the lead, have quietened down considerably, because I think they can sense that this is Alan Jones's race. He's into the last hairpin. He is almost within sight of his 4th victory in 5 races. He accelerates out of the hairpin. Villeneuve will never take him now. Alan Jones wins the Canadian Grand Prix, and Villeneuve is in 2nd place in the Ferrari.
Very fine drive by Alan Jones, Murray. Great reward for that perseverance and constant pressure, because it's a very difficult thing to do, and a great drive by Villeneuve, apart from that mistake.
Jones wins. Villeneuve 2nd, Clay Regazzoni in the Saudia Williams 3rd, Jody Scheckter in the Ferrari 4th, Didier Pironi, Candy Tyrrell 5th, and John Watson in the McLaren in 6th position. And the World Championship positions now mean that Jody Scheckter, of course, is World Champion. Villeneuve moves up to 2nd, Jones to 3rd, and Lafitte could still finish 3rd if he does well in America. Well, off the track, the main story to come out of Montreal this weekend has, of course, been Niki Lauda's decision to retire from motor racing. The Austrian, who was twice world champion, made up his mind to quit after the first practice session for tonight's race, when he had been driving the new Ford-powered Brabham that's replacing the Alfa Romeo engine, which was so unreliable for Lauda this season. Well, Niki is now in the United States, apparently looking to buy himself a new aeroplane. But just before practice started in Montreal, he talked to Jackie Stewart, and possibly some of the reasons for his decision were already in his mind.
Some people might say that Niki Lauda could have been more successful in 1979 if he had given motor racing his complete undivided attention. Do you feel that has been a loss? Do you think you could have had this team more motivated if you had just stayed single-minded in Grand Prix racing rather than going to your auxiliary operations?
It's absolutely right that single-minded in motor racing does do the job for motor racing, if all the surroundings is right. We tried since the last year and a half year before when I joined Brabham to get the tie-up between Brabham and Alfa Romeo in the way it should be, 110%, and then the team will have success. But this, through political fights, didn't happen. So we always had to face the situation basically that Alfa made their own car, working against us in some ways, and supplying the engines. So I think the base at the Brabham Alfa Romeo team until now wasn't there. Even if I would have put in more effort, I don't think it would have changed anything because of the political problem. I think as long as you are in motor racing, it's more boring it is in one way, because you know all the people, everything is the same all the time. And it needs special motivation. You know, like if you start when you're 25 years old or 22 years old, you start motor racing. The motivation is there because you want to get in, you want to know everything, you want to win and all that. So if you know everything, you have won a lot of races. You always need new motivations to bring the push-up you need to be successful. You have to drive racing cars with your heart and your head for it. The main thing is the heart. You have to get into these cars and you have to be excited now to start the practice tomorrow here in Montreal, you know, to really get moving. So if you get in the car all miserable and you say, oh shit, I have to drive again, all that, it won't work. And I sometimes feel a little bit of not all that power, because especially the problems I had. I only finished 2 races this year. So, you know, it's all not funny anymore. So it really does get boring.
Well, Niki Lauda isn't the only world champion to have retired from motor racing this year. James Hunt has done the same thing. James, did you find it surprising that Niki's retired?
Not really, Murray. He caught me a little bit by surprise because there's been so much argy-bargy and manoeuvrings of contracts and things for next year. But, I mean, a few months ago I would have said that it was an absolute natural for him. In fact, I talked to him and urged him to do so because I think, you know, it's reached a point. He's not winning races. He's scored 4 points this year. He hasn't won a Grand Prix, not through any fault of his own, because he's been in a car that hasn't been capable of winning a Grand Prix. Now, when you're young and an up-and-comer, that doesn't matter because you can still build a reputation in a car that isn't capable of winning Grand Prix, because you can go out and say, if you're a number 2 and you're an up-and-comer, you beat your teammate, and that's impressive, and that, you know, you can establish things. You can go well for 20 laps, and if the thing blows up, that's fine. You've done a good job. When you're at Niki's stage, or at the stage that I was at, you're only in the business to win. There's nothing else. You're not proving anything else. If anything, you're driving a bad car, you're pushing down your reputation. I mean, for example, a good example of that was, you know, I was struggling and destroying my reputation driving a very bad car this year. Conversely, when I retired, I'd already demonstrated to the world at large that the car was bad, assuming the fact that so long as people believed that I was trying. And so Keke Rosberg comes in, gets his chance, and has done an extremely good job in the cars, and it's done his reputation a power of good, although the car still hasn't finished and done him any good. Now, that for me would have been bad. Same for Niki.
James, I must say as an enthusiast that it seems inconceivable to me that with all the travel and the excitement and the money, racing at the top level could really be boring. Do you really say it is?
Yes, Murray, because with all the excitement and the travel and everything that you rightly say, it's very hard work. And it's fine when you're winning. Niki talked a little bit in his interview about motivation. There's nothing better for getting you right up to the peak of motivation if you're in a car that can win, and there's nothing worse if you're at his or my stage of your career than driving a car that you know can't win. How do you want to get out of bed in the morning? You've got to go and drive a racing car, knowing that you are a winner, capable of winning, in a car that completely destroys that chance and makes it impossible. I mean, you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. And you know, the fun and the excitement are, I mean, it's hard work, and that's it.
James, Lauda the man is hardly the most charismatic man in motor racing. He has been called cold and curt and logical. You're a friend of his. How did you find him?
Absolutely the reverse. I mean, he's a lovely, warm-hearted guy, but he's not a guy who, and he is very logical, very sharp wit, turn of phrase and everything, but he doesn't put himself across well to people who don't know him, that's all, and therefore he doesn't come across well, you know, to the public at large. But he, in fact, believe it or not, in personality and type, is and always was the closest guy to me in Grand Prix racing. We've been friends for a long time, same understanding, same ideas.
Well, next week, James Hunt and I will be at Watkins Glen for the United States Grand Prix, and we'll have highlights of the race for you by satellite here on BBC Two at 5 to 11 next Sunday evening. Tonight, though, we leave you with the philosophy of a champion, and no doubt Niki Lauda will bring it to bear in his retirement, just as he did in his days as a racer. We wish him well.
In life you need a certain amount of luck, but now the question is how much luck you need. I think the luck is the minimum part of it. I think it is. I think you can steer a lot your life, you know what I mean? You have the wheel. I think human beings can do much more for themselves than they think.